Hello. This is a video to give you an overview of Math 3 Unit 4. This is the first unit that is primarily from our textbook. The chapter in the textbook that Unit 4 covers is Chapter 6. So I'm sure when the kids get the book, that will be a first confusion that we're on Unit 4, but we are in Chapter 6. And the things that we're going to learn about this, the function that we're going to add to the students' knowledge bank this chapter is a radical function. During the chapter, we'll take the opportunity to teach them all about algebraic skills with radical expressions and solving radical equations, but we'll do that in the context of a radical function and try to look at it graphically, numerically, analytically, and in words. And so as you look at this overview sheet, you'll see this first part about the first 4 sections is all about using radical expressions, breaking down roots, multiplying and dividing, and rationalizing the denominator with roots, including cube roots, adding and subtracting radical expressions, and expressing a radical expression with rational exponents. Now, just to give you an idea what they come to you with, right here in Math 2, you'll see that before they went into their trig unit, they reviewed Pythagorean theorem, and they wanted to have them have some radical skill at that point because they were going to do special right triangles, including sides of length a root 2 and things like that. So they needed to have them not have all square roots as decimals. So this was a worksheet that was done at one of the high schools to teach about breaking down radicals. Notice they did even include things with variable. And then this was the directions that they saw when they were doing some Pythagorean theorem work expressed in simplest radical form. So they've seen that before. They're all square roots, if you notice, but there was a little bit of variable work. I don't know if that's consistent at every high school. Again, this was the worksheet that was used at one school, but they did have some background in that. And then in Unit 10, they actually got into rational exponents. And so here they learned what a cube root was, what a fifth root was, all of that. And they learned if you express those as fractions, how you could rewrite them in simplest radical form. So they did cover that. I would think most of your Math 2 teachers would tell you the kids didn't have quite enough practice on this, so it's a good thing we're coming back to it. I wouldn't expect them to be 100% proficient, but that's good because you're teaching this again this unit, so that will be a good opportunity for you to go over that. You can know that they have done it some before. In this second page of that worksheet, and this was the worksheet G, not every school used that. Some of them used a worksheet K, which had a little bit less practice. Thus, they need even more practice. But you can see they had to use exponent rules, and exponent rules were covered quite a bit during this chapter. And so they had to add 2/3 and 2/3 is 4/3 and then express it as a radical. So they have had that exposure before. That comes up. And then after the work with how do we handle radicals, what is simplest radical form, they will solve radical equations. And I think this spot right here, the team has added in an extra worksheet, and they are going to teach graphing radical functions because it helps students understand the extraneous solution piece. And it's really probably my favorite thing about the whole unit because I felt like I understood better why I got extraneous solutions by looking at the situation graphically. So it's a really nice piece. I'm not sure if you'll need 2 days. By the way, on this assignment sheet, this is not ready for an assignment. You're not going to want to give 1 through 52. This is the problems you could choose from. So these are not assignments. These are just suggested, and you'll find this in your Google Drive curriculum folder. Your PLT lead will probably give this to you or give you a modified version with actual assignments. From here, we're going to take a minute and talk about inverse function and domain and range so that they can relate what they know about quadratic functions to what they know about square root functions and understand how on an even root function, you have a top half and a bottom half. And then they'll go back to the graph representation and understand better why the graph of a square root function is what it is, why it's half of a sideways parabola. And there's more questions about domain and range and things like that. And so that's kind of an overview of what Unit 4 holds for you. If you look at the Unit 4 pre-assessment, you'll have a good idea of how much of what they learned in Math 2 actually stuck with them and how much they don't know. So these things, I think you could count on them having been taught at some time in Math 2. I'm not sure about whether this one will have been covered or not. It is covered in 6.3. Not sure if this one will have been covered. It is covered in 6.2, I believe, and likewise with that one. And then a little review on graphing things they do know, a parabola, a line, how they find intercepts, and the domain and range. We may change a little bit the wording here. I'm recording a bit ahead of the work team, and this direction doesn't seem real clear to me right here. So that's coming up. So this is the pre-assessment. You'll know exactly how much you have to talk about stuff by giving that pre-assessment. And then they have made for you a pre-assessment follow-up activity. You might have been using these all along, but if you haven't looked at those before, I just want to point that out to you. If your students only missed problems 2, 6, 7, and 10, then you can assign them by the 2 days before the test to have done this assignment 2, 6, 7, and 10. Or you might want to, after you've gone over that pre-assessment, assign everybody to do all of them. But it can be a prescriptive assignment. In other words, they're going to staple to their pre-assessment this worksheet and do whichever ones they missed. So they have less homework if they do well on the pre-assessment, and they have more if they don't. And just give them a little time during the unit as you've gone over things, and then they should make sure they know this, because these are things they need to know. And so if they missed it originally, hopefully they know it before the end of the unit or midway through the unit. Okay. So that's kind of just an overview of what the unit's about. Just wanted to give you that as a heads up. There are some tricky things about absolute value that are going to come up in 4.1 and the way the book uses absolute values and its answers for 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. And so make sure I'll make a separate video just on that concept. And so make sure and watch that, or at least talk about it in your PLT to know that you understand what the book is doing, because it's a little tricky. Okay, good luck. Enjoy.